Hey there everyone, Steve the Amateur Historian, and I apologize in advance. I can't control it. Somebody's car alarm has been going off for like 5 minutes. The owner has to know what's going off, so they're just being jerks and not coming out and dealing with it. And I'm here now, and I'm not going to be here soon, so I can't just wait it out. Especially if that thing's going to be going off for like 30 minutes. So it's just an unfortunate background. Finally, they came and got it. It was like they knew I was starting to record. So anyway, that issue pushed aside. I'm in Southeast Portland. I'm at Southeast 8th and Division right here. And I'm bringing you an on-the-scene episode of my mystery murder series, as this particular event occurred in Portland. And it's another one of these cases where from almost the moment the event happened, there's not a lot of certainty as to what happened. There hasn't really been a stable suspect. It's just been a looming mystery now for over 60 years. So this service station in particular, it's, I think today it's 835 Division, but I think it was 815 Division back in 1958. I may have those numbers reversed, but it means essentially 815, 835, they're like the same. And this takes up pretty much this whole block. But this old service station was run in 1958 by a 48-year-old woman named Dorothy Balfour. And, you know, I don't know how long she ran it. She must have run it for a pretty long time, and she had a pretty consistent system that she ran. You know, she would do her business here during the day. She would remove all the money from the registers at night, any receipts, any, you know, necessary paperwork, currency from that day, and she put it in a box that she kept under her bed in an apartment that she lived in on the back side of the building, which makes sense because you look at this out front and it looks kind of like it's just a skinny little service station, but this stretches up a whole block. So Dorothy's apartment was likely the back part of this building. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so it's 8:35 today, so it would have been 8:15 back then, and you see the building stretches up. It actually gets shorter because the ground goes up. So I can only assume the apartment was kind of to the back portion here. I don't know what all is back here today, but that's my guess. So Dorothy would have been in the apartment to the back side here. God, I can almost climb up on the roof. It's so short. But they say it was to the back part of the service station, so it would have been probably back here. This building is all kind of one thing, and there's nowhere else for an apartment to be here. You'd have to go across the street before there's housing here. So maybe it was only accessible, and this could have also been changed over time. This story did happen over 60 years ago, so maybe it was, you could only access the apartment from through the service station, which would be interesting. I'm really not sure. And there's like a big, I think there's a lot, there's homeless people living in here, and there's a bunch of trash down there. So I don't want to go over there, but yeah, so she would have been towards this side. It would be very interesting to understand, or to know, I guess is a better way to put it, whether the apartment was accessible through another door, or if you had to go through the service station to get there. Because Dorothy's neighbors started getting a little bit concerned. Here's a woman that woke up, opened up shop here every single day. I assumed the place was open 7 days a week as a service station. And suddenly neighbors start noticing newspapers piling up out in front. And a couple days go by. She's last seen on a Monday evening. It would have been September 1st, 1958 is when she's last seen. And by Friday, September 5th, 1958, neighbors in the area noticed the papers piling up here and they get concerned that she's disappeared. So they contact the police. They wanted to initially file it as more of like a missing persons thing than a murder, because they didn't know what was going on. They just knew that it appeared she was gone because she wasn't picking up her papers each morning. So authorities show up here, and they go through the usual stuff. They show up, they see the papers on the ground, they knock at the door, they try to get some response, and nothing happens. It's been 5 days. So the authorities, presumably at the front of the service station here, decide to smash the door in and break in. They break in, they enter, they look around. Nothing is amiss initially. Now, they did notice that there was no money in the register, but again, it was normal for Dorothy to remove all cash from the register at the end of the day. So an empty register inside the station part of this building would not have necessarily been anything to be concerned about. So they search about the building, see nothing initially, then they make it to the apartment in the back, and it's there that they discover the dead body of Dorothy Balfour. Dorothy was discovered in the bed of the bedroom portion of her apartment, and she had a pillow over her face. When that pillow was removed, it was noted that she'd had bruising on the nose. She had a very badly blackened eye. It looked like there had been a bit of a scuffle. The apartment wasn't in too much of a state of, things being broken, a major scuffle happening, but there had to have been a struggle of some kind. And it would later be determined that Dorothy was killed via being choked to death. And with the pillow on her face, now it could have just been, sometimes killers can't handle the aftermath of what they do. So like after they brutally murder someone, they'll cover them in blankets and pillows, like it's a way of like hiding from the world this horrible thing they just done. But in a more legal sense, authorities thought perhaps whoever broke in, I'm assuming it was someone who broke in. Now it could have been somebody that Dorothy thought she could trust, that she allowed to come inside her place. But it was thought that it was also possible that whoever did this could have strangled her. And when they thought or strangled her into a state of unconsciousness where they could get full control over her and she would just be out, they then placed a pillow firmly over her face to finish the job, so to speak. And more than one witness said that there was a man that was visiting Dorothy that night, the last night she's seen alive, Monday, September 1st. And he was mentioned in a few police articles. They said they're looking for this man, this mystery man that was seeing her that night. And you'd think they would have had a pretty good idea of who this man might have been, unless this was some guy that Dorothy had just started recently getting in contact with, some guy she initially started dating. One article said that the police said they knew the name of the guy. And yet I could find in no information anything that suggested they found the guy, that they talked to him, that they determined he wasn't a suspect or was a suspect. He just kind of popped up in newspapers and then disappeared. And whether it was that guy, and for whatever reason he may have been seeing Dorothy for, whether he was responsible or anybody else in the world, it was a pretty rough sight to stumble upon, especially when it seems like people thought maybe it was just initially a missing persons case or a kidnapping or something like that. And then to discover the woman in the back of her place kidnapped. And another interesting twist is Dorothy's car was also missing. So the presumption is whoever came in and killed her took her keys, went outside, and fled in her car. So, once upon a time, this would have been Hall Street coming through here. And this here is First Avenue. So this would have been the intersection of First and Hall. And one of the few kind of extenuating pieces of evidence in a situation where the police didn't really know where to go was Dorothy Balfour's car that had vanished from her station. Would have been right across the river, only about, it was along 8th, but with the way the river is, it may have been more like 10, 12 blocks from the river, and the river, Willamette River is only a couple blocks from here, so it would have been kind of a beeline across the river, especially if you got to a bridge in this vicinity. Whoever did it was probably fleeing the scene and didn't have their own vehicle, so they took her vehicle. And why they took it to this location before abandoning it, no one can say for certain. It could be that they just wanted that car to get away from the crime scene, but they knew driving around in a dead woman's car, because her body was going to be found. She was going to be found at some point. And so this was a stolen car that belonged to a dead woman. So whoever was responsible probably knew they couldn't take the car that far before they had to ditch it and find new means of transportation. So they probably managed to get themselves across the river, got to First and Hall here, ditched the car, and took off any number of possible directions. But nobody knows. It still didn't tell us really anything about the guilty party, except that they stole her car and only drove it a short distance before abandoning it, and then fleeing off somewhere into the darkness, both potentially literally and metaphorically speaking. And it's the late 50s. Fingerprint evidence is a thing. I don't know if they ever uncovered any prints that pointed to a specific person or a specific possible suspect, either here or inside Dorothy's car. Now, granted, running a service station and an apartment, it wouldn't surprise me if she potentially from time to time had visitors go to her apartment. There would have been fingerprints from various people all over the service station, because you have customers coming and seeing you. You have employees there. But at least in the car, I would think they would have found something. And as far as I can tell, they didn't find anything fingerprint-wise, blood-wise, or anything to target a specific someone as possibly being responsible in this case. And I know there was a lot of kind of bickering, theorizing back and forth as to whether this was a robbery gone wrong. Now again, the empty cash register inside the station portion of the place would not necessarily be a cause for concern, but what else was noticed was that box I mentioned earlier that she would put all her money and stuff into at the end of the day and keep under her bed. That, in addition with the car, had disappeared. Now the car would be later found, I'll get to that, but as far as I've been able to discern, that cash box was never found, and it's unknown exactly how much money was in that box. But the fact that went missing makes the possibility of this being a robbery that, turned brutal. It makes it seem a little bit more realistic. Now, it could be whoever killed her had other motives, but then thought, hey, she runs her own service station and lives back here. Maybe there's some money around that I can grab. And, if it's someone that's going to need to go on the lam, AKA, steal her car and try to flee, they might need a little bit of spending cash. So would that be a motive? So it's definitely possible that this was a robbery that had gone awry, considering the fact that the cash box is gone. But there's numerous other circumstances that could lead to someone, lots of people have killed someone and then just ransacked the place afterwards, even if the motive wasn't robbery. So it's kind of something you teeter on a little bit and don't know for absolute certainty. But that definitely, the cash box disappearing definitely points fingers in that direction. And what's most frustrating about this whole thing in the end is that it's just that there was information obviously available as to what happened in this case, but there were so many other little details that it would have been really nice to know to try to put more pieces together in this case that I just couldn't find. Like, again, this man that supposedly had visited her the last time she was seen alive. The police say they knew who that man was, but I never ever saw an identity put out for that guy. I never saw any explanation for who he was, why they were, or where he could have been, what his name was. And if he visited her Monday night and that was the last time anybody saw her alive, well, how do we know she wasn't killed Tuesday morning? So in this case, in addition to the fact that there just really has never been any great suspects. There's these little details that would really help in terms of trying to theorize and try to understand exactly what happened in this case of Dorothy Balfour being brutally murdered in her apartment behind her service station, just right back there now. Was it robbery? Was it jealousy? Was there a man she was seeing that she decided she didn't want to see anymore and he got violent with her? That happened all the time back then. It happened all the time before then. It happens now. So was it something like that? And so the motive, was it intended to be a different kind of crime that ultimately ended in murder? Some other kind of crime, and she fought with him, and whoever the killer was, they ended up getting a hold of her throat and strangling her. And then, but to possibly strangle her and then put the pillow over her face to finish her off, that suggests somebody wanted to kill her. Now, it could be that the choking alone killed her and they just, again, put a pillow over her face because they were afraid, or they were disgusted by what they had done and they wanted to, kind of block it away from them. Because, again, killers have done that. It would be nice to know for certain, because if you choke someone out and then finish them off, like, that tells me you wanted to kill them. Because if the whole objective is you're just trying to get away and she's being, she's struggling with you and you can't get away, well, once you choke her out and she's unconscious, you can escape now. And again, was the taking of the money an afterthought, or was that a motive? So the late local Portland historian J.D. Chandler wrote a piece on his blog about a guy named Ernest Taylor, who I've actually referenced a couple of times on my channel. He murdered the woman that ran the rooming house he was staying at in January of 1958. So about 8 months or so before Dorothy Balfour was killed in her station. And Chandler referenced the possibility that Taylor could have been responsible for Balfour's death. However, and I think it was probably just an accident on his part, he mentioned that Dorothy Balfour was killed in January of 1958 when she was killed in September of 58. And Ernest Taylor was captured just a couple days after killing Bessie Hammonds, the woman that ran the house he stayed at. So he was in custody when Dorothy Balfour was killed, and he managed to escape and was on the lam for like decades before he was finally found again. So in that vein, Ernest Taylor couldn't have been the killer, but something else near the end of this written piece that he did, J.D. Chandler mentioned how cases such as this weren't really well understood. Murders against, we've kind of isolated murders against women at this time. And the 1950s was kind of an interesting, strange decade for individual women being murdered. There were a lot of kind of strange, bizarre, very isolated, very one-of-a-kind kind of incidences that happened in the 1950s of murder against women. Dorothy Balfour absolutely fits into that. And Bessie Hammond, the woman that Ernest Taylor did kill. Earlier in the 50s, a woman named Joanne Dewey was brutally murdered, and it was a big case in Portland during that time. So J.D. did touch on, at least in that vein, the kind of this kind of different period, because I've gone over a lot of cases of murders against women pre-1940, and they're all distinct in their own way, but they also, the majority of them fit into a few different categories. Murder by jealous husbands, murder by jealous men in general who had fallen in love with them and they didn't reciprocate that love. And a lot of times when women were murdered in Portland, it was often by somebody who they were engaged engaged with, married to, or someone that just had developed an obsession over them. It was often, you know, a kind of just a deranged man who wanted their affection or felt they were entitled to their affection and then committed that murder. And in the 1950s, that wasn't necessarily the case as often. And in the case of Dorothy Balfour, we don't really know. It's very, very mysterious. There's this, you know, man who supposedly was there with her the night, or at least the last night that she was known to be alive. What was his connection to her? Were they seeing each other? Were they just acquaintances? Were they friends? Is hard to say, and it's looking back at the murder, and I mean, granted, what few details we actually have in the case, it's hard for me to see this as a murder done by someone out of love. Now, jealousy, that's a whole other, you know, situation. It could have been something like that. And again, as I mentioned before, the fact that the money box was missing from her place. Was this a murder just to get money? It seems like a stretch. I mean, a woman running her own service station, a man can look at that and see it's just a woman by herself. That would be easy for me, a man, using that mode of thinking, to go in there and wrestle that money free from her. And circumstances could have led to her dying in that situation. And again, it gets a very interesting death. It wasn't just somebody that walked in and shot someone and walked out with the money. It was, you know, there was an effort made to kind of cover her up afterwards, which often, not necessarily in this case, but often is a representation of some element of shame or misfortune on the part of whoever was responsible. They either don't want to acknowledge what they've just done, or they almost want to kind of hide it from anybody else discovering it, even though inevitably someone is going to find that, and someone did. So you can go a lot of different directions with Dorothy Balfour's murder and say someone who was obsessed with her maybe killed her and probably took the money. Someone who had taken an interest in her. Someone that she had wronged, or at least someone who perceived that she had wronged them. She could have been killed for the money, or the money could have been a, you know, convenience there, an afterthought. This case is really strange in that vein, because even other cases that I've looked into where there's not a whole lot of information available, you can usually at least get a good feel and kind of sort of narrow down what you really feel is a strong, solid motive. Or maybe you even have one really strong motive with one or two backup ones, and you can at least kind of narrow it down, even though you're still just theorizing. But with Dorothy Balfour, I mean, whoever was responsible, I feel like there's an argument that it could have been any number of different kind of people. Someone she was interested in, someone who was interested in her, a friend, a family member, a longtime lover, a short-term lover. I mean, and, you know, when it could have been any number of different people, there's any number of possible motives that could have driven that person to do that murder. And did whoever killed her, was that absolutely 100% premeditated, or was it the result of some kind of scuffle? Did the death come as a result of them trying to steal her money and them fighting back? Or again, was the money an afterthought and the murder was related to something else? When you have such an assortment of different possible characters that could have been responsible, you have a plethora of other possible motives we may not even think about. Which really makes cases like this difficult to decipher and to fully understand. And so, you know, that may be why, you know, few newspaper reports were done on this case. And other than this one little reference I saw in a blog by J.D. Chandler, who J.D. Chandler was very much into the history of crime and violence and vice in Portland, and he knew a lot about murders that happened here, so it only made sense that he would know about this. But other than that, there's nothing about Dorothy Balfour out there. Like, literally, I've searched and tried to find more stuff, and outside of the newspaper database I use, J.D. Chandler, this one blog he did, that's the only other place I've ever seen this murder referenced. So the event happened, and then it just kind of faded away. And I think, to this day, nobody really knows exactly, or at least looking at the information, nobody really knows exactly for certain which way to go. Because if you go one direction, there's plenty of reasons why you should go off this way or go off that way. Which is intriguing, but also incredibly frustrating, because it leaves you in a mystery like this, not knowing which way to turn, which way's the better way to go, and trying to understand and hopefully one day solve this horrible mystery as to the, pain and suffering and loss of life that this woman experienced at the hands of somebody back in 1958. And like all cases I cover in this series, I hope against hope in this one, as well as all the others, that somehow, someday, somewhere along the line, something happens and we are given the answers in this case, and we find out who was responsible and hopefully why they did what they did in this case of the murder of Dorothy Balfour, who ran this service station on 8th and Division so many years ago. And all that said, I'd like to thank you for stopping by, watching this newest installment in my mystery murder series, trying to keep these cases both semi-old and super old alive, regardless of where they sit at this particular moment in time. And I know there's been at least 2 cases I wanted to cover wherein a resolution has been found many years later. So again, even in these cases that sit stagnant for a while, I always hope that someday there will be a resolution to them. So all that said, I want to thank you so much for watching, for supporting this series, for supporting my channel, for supporting me. And if you're new here or haven't done it yet, I want to remind you always to like, share, subscribe, like all that stuff, and hit up my Patreon if you're able to. Even if you only give me $1 a month, it'll give you access to all this extra content that I'm putting out. I'm trying to put stuff out twice a week there, a lot of extra stuff. The link to that is in the description with this video, as well as the links to my Instagram, Patreon, TikTok, my Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and my Reddit subreddit. And I apologize, I'm recording this on July 4th in the evening, so I'm sure you're hearing explosions outside. Don't worry, I'm not in a war zone or anything. So yeah, all that said, one more time, thank you so much for watching, and this has been Steve, the Amateur Historian.